Hey Mets fans, it's Brian here from Mets Mayhem. The New York Mets threw on the home black jerseys to take on the Miami Marlins in Game 1 of a 3-game set at home. Let's get into it. Kodai Senga made his second start of the season and second consecutive versus these very Marlins. The evening didn't start off very well for Kodai, as Marlins leadoff batter Xavier Edwards went the other way with a ground ball single to start off the top of the first. Kyle Stowers then drew a 4-pitch walk. The Marlins had first and second with nobody out, bringing up Otto Lopez, but Kodai got Lopez to hit a ground ball on the very first pitch, right to Lindor, who tossed the ball to Acuna, and we got the force out at second on Stowers for the first out. Now we had runners on first and third with one out. Lopez and the Marlins decided to steal second. Kodai Senga wasn't having it. He gunned them out. So we got the second out of the inning now. Xavier Edwards was held up at third. So now you have a runner on third with two outs. Matt Mervis walked on a 3-2 pitch to put runners back in the corners. But then Kodai got Eric Wagaman to ground out to Pete Alonso for the unassisted putout to end the inning. So that top of the first inning could have went very poorly for the Mets. We had runners on first and second, nobody out, a single, 4-pitch walk. Lopez decided to swing at the first pitch he sees, and he pretty much took Senga off the hook and grounded into the force. After that, he tried to steal second. He got nailed out of second. So he kind of resulted in 2 outs for the Marlins. This was a boxing match. Kodai was on the ropes early in the first inning. The Marlins tried to take a big shot at him, and they missed. He walked another batter, but then he was very fortunate that he was able to right himself and get Wagaman to end the inning. So now we go to the bottom of the first inning, and Valente Beloso took the mound for the Miami Marlins. Francisco Lindor, once again, single to lead off a game. Juan Soto then struck out. Pete Alonso followed with a line drive single of his own to center field. Brandon Nimmo then followed with a fly out to center field. So the Mets, keeping Dane Myers pretty busy in center. Mark Vientos, he feels like he's about to break out. He walked on a 3-2 pitch to load the bases. But then we had Jesse Winker pop up to Xavier Edwards at short, and that ended the threat in the inning. So I thought Vientos' at-bat there was a positive sign for him. He had better plate discipline in that at-bat. He didn't help the pitcher. He didn't expand the zone. He looks very close to breaking out of this slow start. So it was good to see. Hopefully that continues, and hopefully we see the Vientos of last year fairly soon. So both teams had each other's on the rope in the first inning. They weren't able to do much with it. The game kind of had a feel of possibly being a back-and-forth slugfest, but actually that wasn't the case. To the top of the second we go, and Kodai Senga looked much better. He struck out Griffin Conine and Dane Myers to get the first 2 outs. And then he got Graham Pauley to ground out to Luis Angel Acuna, threw the ball over to Alonso, and completed the third out. Tyrone Taylor is getting the start in center in this game, and he led off the bottom of the second with a single, a line drive single to right field. Luis Acuna came to the plate. Taylor took off a bit too early. Beloso stepped off. He threw the ball to second. Otto Lopez applied the tag. Lopez, put the tag down, but Taylor was called safe. The Marlins challenged the call at second. Replays confirmed Taylor was indeed out. The call was overturned, and Taylor was erased from the base paths. So then Acuna then popped up to Graham Pauley at third base for the second out. Kodai Senga struck out to end the inning. So now we go to the top of the third. It's Mets 0, Marlins 0. Nick Fortes led off the top of the third inning and flew out to Brandon Nimmo. Xavier Edwards hit a ground ball up the middle for yet again another single. Kyle Stowers struck out on 3 pitches. However, the Mets were unable to complete the strike him out, throw him out double play, and Edwards stole second base on the strikeout. So Xavier Edwards now at second base in scoring position with 2 outs. Otto Lopez came to the plate. This time he took the first pitch, which was a cutter right over the middle of the plate. He flew out to Juan Soto on the next pitch, and that ended the inning. Francisco Lindor once again led off an inning, this time the bottom of the third inning, and he dropped a beautiful bunt single. Juan Soto followed and lined the ball one hopper off the left center field wall. It scored Lindor just ahead of the relay throw home, and the Mets took a 1-0 lead. With Soto at second and nobody out, he was able to advance to third on a pass ball charged to Marlins catcher Nick Fortes. Pete Alonso then lined out to Griffin Conine in left field, but Soto was unable to tag up on the play. Brandon Nimmo coming up in a big spot here, runner on third, 1 out. We need a ground ball to the right side or fly ball deep enough to score the run. Unfortunately, Brandon popped up to third baseman Graham Pauley for the second out. This is something that Brandon does typically well when he's going well. Unfortunately, he's struggling right now. He got under the pitch, popped it up. Mark Vientos came up with a runner on third and 2 outs. He hit a tailing line drive to left field. Looks like it was going to drop. Griffin Konai made a nice diving catch, robbed Vientos of at least a single and definitely an RBI. I know we didn't score here, but that's back-to-back at bats where Vientos is starting to show signs of life. So that's a good thing from the Mets standpoint. Now, Matt Mervis led off the top of the fourth for the Marlins and hit a ground ball single up the middle. Eric Wagaman then popped up to Alonso, who made a reach and grab into the first base stands, securing the first out. Griffin Konai, after making a nice play just a few moments ago, singled to left field. So now we have Matt Mervis on second, Griffin Konai on first. But Kodai Senga was able to get Dane Myers to hit a ground ball to Luis Angel Acuna, who tossed the ball over to Lindor. Lindor then turned the 4-6-3 double play, ending the inning, getting Kodai Senga out of trouble. In the bottom of the fourth inning, Jesse Winker flew out to Konai in left field for the first out. This time, no dives were involved. Tyrone Taylor popped up to the catcher for the second out. Luis Angel Acuna drew a 3-1 count walk. The Marlins decided that was enough of Beloza, and they brought on Tyler Phillips to face Hayden Singer and got him to pop out to Otto Lopez, who ran behind first base into foul territory, made a nice feet first sliding catch just in front of the fans down the right field line, and that ended the inning. So Kodai Senga, now taking the mound in the fifth inning, gave up a leadoff single to Graham Pauley, but he got erased by getting Nick Fortes to hit a ground ball to Francisco Lindor, who tossed the ball to Acuna, who then completed the throw to Alonso to get another double play. So that's back-to-back innings that Senga was helped by the double play. He ended the inning and his appearance as he was getting pulled in the sixth inning pretty strong by striking out the pesky Xavier Edwards for the third out. So now we go to the bottom of the fifth inning. Francisco Lindor yet again is leading off. This time he laced a line drive to left field for a base hit. Juan Soto then drew another walk. So now we have runners on first and second, nobody out. However, this time it was the Marlins who used a double play to their advantage, and they got Alonso to hit a grounder to Xavier Edwards, who tossed over to Otto Lopez at second, who then threw on to Eric Wagaman. So now we have a 6-4-3 double play. Brandon Nimmo still scuffling a bit, grounded out to second to end the inning. So now we go to the top of the sixth. Kodai Senga is no longer pitching for the Mets. The Mets decide to bring on Danny Young. He immediately gave up a single to Kyle Stowers. However, he did manage to get Otto Lopez to hit a ground ball to Acuna, who threw the ball over to Lindor at second, and we got the force out at second. Jonah Bride then came in to pinch hit for Matt Mervis, and he was called out on strikes. There's nothing worse than being inserted into the game as a pinch hitter and then having your bat end with the bat on your shoulder. Marlins definitely were not happy with that, I'm sure. Eric Wagaman then lined out to Soto to end the inning, so it was a good inning for Young. The Marlins decided to bring on Lake Basher in the bottom of the sixth inning, replacing Tyler Phillips, and he walked Vientos on a 3-2 pitch. I would like to give Vientos credit for this at-bat, plate discipline-wise, but to be honest, he was kind of all over the place. None of those 4 balls that were thrown were competitive. However, that was his second walk of the game. Let's give credit where credit is due. Jesse Winker flew out to left field for the first out. Then Basher struck out both Tyrone Taylor and Luis Angel Acuna to close out the sixth. So we move to the top of the seventh. The Mets are still clinging to a 1-0 lead. Jose Butto came on in relief of Danny Young, and he got Griffin Konai to ground out to Acuna at second for the first out. Dane Myers then singled on a slow grounder to second base. However, Jose Butto caught Myers leaning a little bit towards second, picked him off at first, so now we have 2 outs. He then went on to strike out Graham Pauley for the third out of the inning. So now we go to the bottom of the seventh inning. Who's leading off? No, it's not Lindor this time. Hayden Singer. And Hayden Singer lined out to center field Dane Myers for the first out. Francisco Lindor was second, leading off this inning. However, he grounded out to Xavier Edwards for the second out. So, looks like every time Lindor is leading off this game, an inning, he's getting a hit. If he's not leading off, he's not. So we got to find a way to get him to lead off every inning. Just kidding. The Marlins decided they didn't want Basher to face Juan Soto, so they brought on Anthony Venziano. Didn't help them much, as Juan Soto singled to right field off of him. Pete Alonso then ripped a double to left field right off the top of the wall, putting runners on second and third. The Marlins really misplayed this poorly. The ball was hit so hard there was no chance Soto was going to score. However, they threw the ball in as if they were anticipating a play at the plate. Not only that, because the ball was hit so hard, Alonso probably should have been held at first base with a single, a hard single at that. However, he was able to cruise into second base with no throw, with a double on that play. Luckily enough for the Marlins, Brandon Nimmo is struggling. He's up next, and he continues that by leaving two more runners in scoring position, flying out to left field to end the seventh inning. So Jose Butto remained on to pitch the top of the eighth, and the Marlins pinch hit Liam Hicks for Nick Fortes. Hicks proceeded to ground out to Luis Angel Acuna at second for the first out. Xavier Edwards then walked on a 3-1 pitch before Butto came back. He struck out Kyle Stowers on 3 pitches, and then Butto got Otto Lopez to ground out to Acuna at second for the third out. Now for the Marlins, they decided to bring in George Soriano. He's relieving Anthony Venziano in the bottom of the eighth inning, and Mark Vientos had another positive at bat, drawing his third walk of the game. Jose Suri then came on to pinch run for Vientos, and after Jesse Winker struck out swinging, Jose Suri stole second base to put runners in scoring position, now with 1 out. So Tyrone Taylor then came up to the bat, and he hit a ground ball up the middle to center field. Dane Myers charged the ball, made a perfect throw home, but Suri's speed was just too much. He beat the play at the plate by a couple of steps. Luis Angel Acuna then grounded out to second for the second out, moves Taylor to second base, and then Hayden Singer lined out to center field to end the inning. So the Mets now had a 2-0 lead. They desperately needed that insurance run, and they move on to the top of the ninth inning. So with Edwin Diaz unavailable for this game, Mendoza went with Ryan Stanek in the top of the ninth inning. Brett Beatty came on to play third base for Mark Vientos, as he was pinch run for by Jose Suri. Jonah Bride led off the top of the ninth inning, and he flied out to Tyrone Taylor in center field for the first out. Eric Wagman was called out on strikes for the second out, and then Stanek got Griffin Conine to line out to Tyrone Taylor. Honey had to take a couple of steps back into his left to secure the third out, and the win for the Mets. So the Mets win the opener. They beat the Marlins 2-0. A couple key takeaways from this game. We're going to start with Kodai Senga. Kodai Senga went 5 innings. He picked up the win. He allowed no runs, gave up 5 hits. He walked 2, struck out 4. It was a cold evening at Citi Field. I don't blame Mendoza for not pushing Senga for another inning. He was already at 77 pitches, leaving up 1-0. He was able to pull him, feeling good at the start, and then let's build on this in the next start. It was good to see Danny Young pitch a good inning in a big spot with just a 1-0 lead. Danny Young has probably been the lone spot in this bullpen who hasn't pitched well, so that was good to see him get that opportunity and come through. And Jose Butto continues to do what he does. It feels like the minute the Mets lost Seth Lugo, they immediately plugged in Jose Butto in that role. Maybe he's not quite as dominant as Lugo, but he's been good enough. So Butto then got the Mets through the 7th and the 8th inning. They managed to add on an insurance run in the 8th inning after Mark Vientos' third walk of the game. Siri pinch ran, stole second. Tyrone Taylor drove him in. So the Taylor-Siri combo played a huge part in this game and this victory. Well, Mark Vientos, he walked 3 times. He was robbed of a hit on a diving catch in left field by Griffin Conine. It looks like Vientos is right there about to break out. Ryan Stanek was called on to close this game. He did his job. Lastly, Francisco Lindor. Francisco Lindor picked up his 1,500th hit of his career. By the time his contract ends with the Mets after the 2031 season, he may very well be a couple of hundred hits away from 3,000. Hopefully all goes well between now and then, and he is still productive. The Mets are able to re-sign him for a couple of years, and he's able to reach that milestone in a Met uniform. I'm glad the Met fans are starting to embrace him, because Francisco Lindor is going to be a Hall of Famer. Mark my words, he's going to be a Hall of Famer. I know we started off slow after we traded for him, and he was given that huge contract. There was an adjustment period early on. When all is said and done, Francisco Lindor's number 12 jersey will be retired by the Mets. Francisco Lindor will be enshrined in the Baseball Hall of Fame as a New York Met. He'll have close to, if not surpassed, 3,000 hits and he'll have close to, if not surpassed, 500 home runs as a shortstop. So Tuesday's game is going to be weather challenged, so the start time has been pushed up from 7:10 p.m. Eastern to 4:10 p.m. Eastern. Taking the mound for the Mets is Clay Holmes. He's making his third start of the season. The Mets will be facing Connor Gillespie again, who pitched against them well in his last outing. The key to this game is to get on Gillespie earlier. I stated that the last time he faced the Mets got him on the ropes, he got out of it, and then he kind of cruised the rest of the way. The Mets then beat the Marlins bullpen in that game. Hopefully we can jump on him early, put him on the ropes, and get a lead early and cruise the rest of the game. But we'll see. I'll be back to recap the game and provide any other Met-worthy news. But until then, Mets fans, let's go Mets.